Welcome once again. My name is Anindita Buragohai and I am the Outreach Officer for IRCC in India. Thank you for joining our webinar today. We are pleased to announce changes to the travel restrictions since October 20th, which will permit more international students to travel to Canada. As Canada looks at ways to safely bring in more international students, we wanted to also give you the opportunity to get updated information and ask questions. Please note that the contents of this webinar are valid as of today. For the most current information on IRCC processes and travel restrictions to Canada, please visit our website www.canada.ca/immigration. Now that you are seriously looking at choosing Canada to study, you should be aware of the current travel restrictions in light of the COVID-19 pandemic. However, nationally, we're seeing positive changes from actions put in place to stop the spread of COVID-19. We are taking precautions by ensuring there is more physical distancing, mandatory mask wearing, and promoting good hygiene practices. Canada is working to slow the spread of new cases by cautiously starting to allow more people to enter Canada. So, this brings us to the most recent changes to travel restrictions, which came into effect on October 20th, 2020. Canada is now allowing students who are destined to designated learning institutions, also known as DLIs, who have an approved COVID-19 readiness plan approved by their government, provincial, or territorial. As part of the DLI's approved readiness plan, they are expected to provide information to international students on health and travel requirements before they arrive in Canada, help students with their quarantine plans, and provide guidance or assistance in acquiring the necessities of life, such as food and medication during their quarantine. Have a readiness plan to establish protocols for the health of students in the event there are suspected or confirmed COVID-19 cases at the school. The list of DLIs, which with an approved COVID-19 readiness plan, is now posted on IRCC's webpage for international students affected by COVID-19 restrictions and is updated every 2 weeks as provinces and territories identify additional schools. This change to travel restrictions affects all international students, regardless of where they are traveling from or when their study permit was approved. Travelers should not make any travel plans until they have met all requirements and received all necessary authorizations. With the amended travel restrictions, immediate family members may be able to accompany an international student to Canada if their reason for travel is non optional or non discretionary, such as getting established in Canada in support of the student's study program. This could include a spouse or common law partner or a dependent. If the accompanying dependents of international students are traveling with them, they don't need a written authorization from IRCC to travel with the student. However, they must show that their reason for travel are non-discretionary or non-optional. For example, they'll help the student get established and support them in Canada. If the immediate family member will study or work in Canada, they must submit all their applications together when they apply online. If the immediate family member won't study or work in Canada, they still need an electronic travel authorization or a visitor visa to travel to Canada. If they need a visitor visa, they should include their application when they apply online for their study permit. If the immediate family members join the student later, who is already in Canada or will travel to Canada by themselves, then they need to travel to Canada. Their travel to Canada depends on where they're traveling from. In most cases, they will need an authorization letter. And in order to know that, please visit our website under what you need to know to join your partner or your family member who is a student in Canada. To be clear, students who were approved a visa at any time, whether that was on or before or after March 18th, will be allowed to travel to Canada provided that their school is on the approved DLI list. Their travel is considered essential. The March 18 date was only applicable to travel restrictions in effect prior to October 20th, but it is no longer relevant. If your study permit is to attend a school which is not listed on the DLI approved list, your visa will be deactivated. This means that you cannot travel to Canada at this time as you will receive a no board message from the airline. We are aware of many service disruptions that are causing delays in the processing of your application. Only online applications are accepted at this time. This allows us to continually process applications across our network through work sharing of this caseload until operations normalize. When applying online, ensure that your name and date of birth are exactly as they are shown in your passport. We are seeing many cases where applicant correspondence or the biometric instruction letter is incorrect. These errors take time to correct and will delay the processing of your application. Panel physicians, some businesses and schools remain closed or are operating at limited capacity. This means that it may take longer for you to complete your medical exam or obtain the supporting documents you need for your application. Despite this, we will not refuse applications for non-compliance or failure to submit the requested documents at this time. However, you must submit the missing documents as soon as possible because we will not be able to finalize your application otherwise. On the IRCC website, the published processing times are no longer accurate since we are prioritizing applications for people who are exempt from the travel restrictions. The India VAX or Visa Application Centers are now booking appointments for biometrics for students. Applicants must complete the VFS web form online to book an appointment. VFS will confirm your appointment by email at a later date. Additionally, to submit your passport for visa issuance, visit the VFS website for instructions on how to access the two-way courier service. Note that IRCC Delhi continues to operate at a limited capacity as necessitated by the pandemic. As such, please expect delays in responding to inquiries. If you need to submit a document or new information, use your MyCIC account to send us this information directly into your application. Additionally, please only send one inquiry and wait for a response. Sending the same inquiry multiple times will only cause further delays. VFS is now accepting appointments for biometrics for students. Many students require biometric appointments, and we are asking for your patience as biometric appointments are being rolled out incrementally. At this time, only students and family class permanent resident applicants will be prioritized for biometric appointments. Therefore, family members of students may have to wait. Visit the VFS website and follow us on social media for updates to VAC priorities. We understand there is a huge demand for biometric appointments. The VAC has already booked over 40,000 biometric appointments. We were unable to provide priority for those who have enrolled in classes in January session and from an approved DLI. Given the volume of emails and requests received, it was impossible for the VAC to further triage appointments based on enrollment dates. Our priority was therefore to book as many biometric appointments as we could for these priority groups. This may mean that not all students will receive their study permit for the January session. Please note that you may study online and DLIs are still offering classes online given Canada is still taking strict measures to curb the spread of the virus in many provinces and territories. Therefore, once you obtain your study permit and if you are from a DLI with an approved COVID-19 readiness plan, you may travel to Canada. If your DLI is not on the approved provinces and territories list, we will only finalize applications which result in a refusal. If you meet eligibility requirements, your application will not be approved for a visa until travel restrictions are further amended or lifted. This slide reflects the documents needed to receive an approval in principle for the student direct stream and non-student direct stream or non-SDS stream. For SDS, you need a valid letter of acceptance, an IELTS test result demonstrating 6.0 in each band, a receipt or documentation that tuition has been paid for the first year, including all scholarships and grants, a receipt for a GIC for 10,000 Canadian dollars, your most recent school transcripts, and a CAQ or a Certificate of Acceptance for Quebec-bound students. For the non-SDS stream, here is what's different. In addition to IELTS, we also accept TOEFL and PTE test results. No online language test results will be accepted. Instead of a GIC and paying a full year tuition, you must show liquid funds to pay for tuition, living expenses, and transportation for the first year of school, plus an explanation and evidence of how you intend to pay for all of the remaining subsequent years of school without relying on working in Canada. Additionally, we strongly recommend that you submit a statement of purpose to explain why you have chosen that program of study, why Canada, and explain your financial plan to pay for all your years of study. Note that if you are unable to submit a required document, for example, upfront medicals, your application will be moved to the non-SDS stream. For those who applied before September 15 for a 2020 start date and are still waiting for your approval in principle, you should review your MyCIC account and personal email account for any correspondences sent to you about missing information. Please make sure your application is complete or it will cause delays. In the next few slides, we want to provide you with information about medical examinations and tuberculosis. We sometimes find that applicants are reluctant to complete their medicals because of fear of refusal. Allow us to allay some of these fears now. All permanent resident applications and temporary resident applicants who will be staying in Canada for more than 6 months require a medical exam. Only designated panel physicians are able to conduct your immigration medical exam. You can find a list of them on our website. Note that the panel physician doesn't make the final decision about your medical exam. IRCC does that. If there's a problem with your medical exam, we'll contact you in writing. When can you take your medical exam? You have two options. You can do it before you submit your application, which is called an upfront medical. To arrange this, please contact the panel physician directly to make an appointment. Your other option is to wait until after you submitted your application. If you choose this route, you must wait for IRCC to send you instructions. You will have 30 days to comply with these instructions. Failure to do so may result in the refusal of your application. Here is what you can expect during your medical exam. You must complete a medical history questionnaire which will ask you about previous or existing medical conditions. They'll also ask you about any medications you're taking. There is the physical examination during which the doctor or the medical clinical staff weigh you, measure your height, they check. I'm sorry, there's a slight technical difficulty. Let me just come back to you. Here is what you can expect during your medical exam. You must complete a medical history questionnaire which will ask you about previous or existing medical conditions. They'll also ask you about any medications you're taking. There is the physical examination during which the doctor or medical clinical staff will weigh you, measure your height, check your hearing and vision, take your blood pressure, feel your pulse, listen to your heart and lungs, feel your abdomen, check how your limbs move, and look at your skin. The doctor or medical clinical staff won't examine your genitals or rectal area. These parts of the body aren't required for the immigration medical exam. The doctor may need to examine your breasts. If they do, they will provide you with an explanation of why and how the examination is being done. You have the right to a chaperone at any time during the medical exam. You may ask the medical clinic to have a staff member in the room. Stop the exam at any time to ask questions about what the doctor is doing. Stop the exam and ask for a chaperone even if you refuse one at first. And if you have questions or feel uncomfortable with a part of the exam, please ask the panel physician to stop and tell them about your concerns. You should also note the following. Chest X-ray is mandatory for all applicants 11 years of age or older. Urine test and blood test is mandatory for all applicants and 15 years and older. The blood test is to check for HIV, syphilis, kidney, and liver infections. When you arrive, the panel physician or clinic staff will ask you for identification to confirm your identity. If you're referred for an X-ray or other tests, you may be asked to present your identification again when you go for those tests. Your picture will also be taken for our records. After your exam is done, the panel physician will send the results electronically to IRCC. This usually takes between 2 to 3 days before it gets recorded in your immigration file, but it could go up to 10 days. So please be patient. In case of additional tests required, we will let you know promptly if you need them. During the medical examination, you will be tested for tuberculosis, also known as TB. If the doctor finds signs of TB, you may be asked for additional tests to determine if your TB is old and inactive or if it is active. In most of the cases, TB is old and inactive and your medical can be finalized immediately. In a small percentage of patients, TB can be active. In those cases, it is important to note that anyone can get TB as it is transmitted through the air when a person with TB coughs, speaks, laughs, or sneezes. Since TB is contagious, it is important that you get treated before you travel. If you have TB, you will not be barred from going to Canada. You will, however, need to be fully treated before you travel. TB can be treated, but it is very important to complete the full treatment. If you do not complete the full treatment, you can develop a form of TB that is more difficult to treat and you can infect people around you and those you love. Many of you will have questions about working in Canada and how the current changes may affect your opportunities to be employed. So, why is the post graduation work permit important for many students? Work permit provides a better opportunity to gain the language skills and work experience required to apply for permanent resident status in Canada. In addition, Canada has some of the highest salary for workers. Furthermore, persons with Canadian work experience are often able to demonstrate they have the skills, knowledge, and critical thinking required to do the job. It is worth noting that you can obtain up to a 3-year Pgwp. This all depends on the length of your eligible studies. IRCC has introduced additional measures to provide maximum flexibility for students to obtain their Pgwp. If you are unable to travel to Canada at this time due to travel restrictions, your eligible online studies will count towards your Pgwp if you already have or have been approved a study permit or you applied for a study permit before beginning your program in either 2020 or winter 2021. If you fall in any of the situations listed above, you can complete up to 100% of your program online while outside of Canada. If your program is between 8 and 12 months in length and you started your program of study between May and September 2020. This essentially means that taking an entire 1-year program online outside of Canada may qualify the entire program for a Pgwp. You can also complete up to 50% of one program online up until April 30th, 2021, while outside of Canada, if you will also eventually complete at least 50% of your program in Canada. Furthermore, you can complete up to 50% of two programs online up until April 30th, 2021, while outside of Canada, if you graduate from two different programs within 2 years of each other, and each program is at least 8 months in length, and at least one of the programs started between May and September 2020, and at least 50% of the combined programs is completed in Canada. This means that you could potentially complete a 1-year program outside of Canada and then take another 1-year program in Canada, and both programs will give you the maximum allowable time towards your Pgwp. Note that only online classes that began in 2020 or winter 2021 and ending by April 30th, 2021 can be counted. Fall 2020 and winter 2021 semesters must also be a full-time course load. This section applies to students who are already in Canada. Essentially, if a student switched to part-time studies or had to take a break in studies, for example, the spring semester may have been cancelled due to the pandemic, they may still continue to work on and off campus provided they were previously a full-time student and already authorized to work on and off campus pre-pandemic. For off-campus work, the maximum limit is still 20 hours per week during the academic session and full-time during regular academic breaks. School closure, part-time studies, or semester cancellation due to COVID-19 do not count as a regularly scheduled academic break. Having a plan to quarantine is a very important piece to the travel restrictions being relaxed for international students. Make sure you follow it. Not doing so could end up costing you or others COVID-19, as well as imprisonment, removal from Canada, and a fine of up to 750,000 Canadian dollars. Before traveling, you should organize and arrange for the following. Have a plan to self quarantine for 14 days. Be prepared to provide evidence that you have a suitable place to quarantine. This means providing an address and explaining how you intend to self-quarantine if other people live at the same location. Explain how you intend to respect that quarantine plan. For example, explain how you intend to receive essential items such as food, water, etc. Here are various fraud activities and misinformation related to immigration applications. You should scan the QR code on the screen for more information. Protect yourself. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Never share your personal information with unauthorized strangers. Fraudulent websites and scams. Websites may claim to be official Government of Canada sites. They do this to trick people into paying them money. Biometric services and IRCC forms. Biometric appointments are free. You should book your own biometric appointment. If you can't book your own appointment, don't use an unauthorized agent because your appointment may not be legitimate. Telephone scams. IRCC will never ask you for any sort of payment by telephone. Unauthorized agents. You do not need an agent to submit an application. If you choose to use one, ensure that your agent is legally authorized to represent you by being a member of a law society in Canada, the Chambre des Notaires in Quebec, or IRCCRC, a regulatory body for immigration consultants in Canada. All paid agents must be authorized. An authorized representative can provide you with valuable tips to avoid paying too much money for an immigration service, as well as what you can expect. And this brings me to the last slide of the presentation. Please make sure to follow us on social media for updates regarding the VAC two-way courier service and other operational changes with regard to VAC, and additions to the DLI COVID-19 Readiness Plan approved list. We have the IRCC website, the High Commission website, and social media such as Facebook and Twitter, and all the latest and most recent information is first updated on social media, and also information with regard to any future webinars, not only for study permits, but all lines of business are shared on our social media channels, so please continue following us there. We now move on to the next part of the webinar today, which is about the frequently asked questions. While I do so, I will keep the QR code open here so that you can scan it and get a document which will help you apply for your study permit application in case you have not yet done so. The questions that we will be covering are based on, like I said, the questions that we receive most frequently over social media channels. I can see that quite a few of the questions that we're receiving today are also included in the ones that I will be addressing. So hopefully you will get the information that you are looking for. So, what do the new updates in the travel restrictions mean for international students? As of October 20th, 2020, students outside Canada holding a valid and approved study permit may enter Canada provided they are entering or attending a DLI with a COVID-19 readiness plan approved by a province or a territory. As a student, your travel to Canada won't be considered essential if your study program has been cancelled or suspended, or you're entering Canada for any reason other than to study. How do I demonstrate that my travel to Canada is essential to the airline and when I'm seeking to enter Canada? You will not be required to produce any other documentation to board your flight other than your valid passport, your study permit visa, or your port of entry letter of introduction, a letter confirming the start date of your classes from your DLI. Review the DLI approved list to ensure your school is listed. Evidence of your ability to quarantine for 14 days prior to studying. Evidence that you have enough money to support yourself. All other students destined to DLIs not on the list, despite having reasons for not being able to complete courses online, will not be able to travel to Canada at this time. This includes students that may have been previously in Canada and were studying. So how do I know that my school is on the approved DLI list? The list is on our IRCC website, and as mentioned, it is updated every 2 weeks. If your DLI is not on the list, you can contact your learning institute directly to find out if they have submitted a COVID-19 readiness plan and at what stage they are at regarding their approval. A very common question which we have been receiving is the two-stage approval or is the two-stage study permit processing available for winter 2021 start dates? The answer to this is no. The two-stage processing was only applicable for classes that started in September 2020. If you have already deferred your studies prior to receiving your approval in principle or the stage 1 approval, you will fall under the regular process. This means that you will not receive an AIP letter and you must wait for your application to be approved to its final stage when we are ready to issue you a visa. At this time, only applications to study at schools on the DLI approved list will be finalized to visa issuance. All other applicants must wait until either the school appears on the DLI approved list or the travel restrictions are lifted. What if you are missing a few documents like medicals, etc.? Would you still qualify for SDS? The answer to this is no. If you are not able to submit all the documents under SDS, the officer will assess your application as a regular non-SDS application. The next question is, what do I do if I cannot submit a document within the requested time frame? Upload a letter of explanation on your MyCIC account explaining why you can't submit the required documents, like your proof of enrollment, final transcripts, or others. For example, you may not be able to get these documents because offices are closed. When we start processing your application, we'll ask for the missing documents and give you an extension to provide them if needed. We won't reject your application if you can't submit the required documents, other than your letter of acceptance because of COVID-19. You can also share with us this information by filling up our IRCC web form. Note that you must provide a letter of acceptance from a DLI upfront when you apply. We won't process applications that are submitted without this document. The next question is, if I am granted an approval in principle, may I assume that once I complete my biometrics and medicals, I will get a student visa? The answer to this is no. An AIP is not the same as being granted a visa. The officer will still need to establish that you meet admissibility requirements. Note that a stage 2 refusal is uncommon provided that you have been truthful in your application, have not provided any fraudulent documents, and that you comply with any additional requests immediately. So moving on to that then, which brings us to the next question. When will my stage 2 admissibility decision be completed? Your stage 2 admissibility decision will be assessed after AIP and before visa issuance. This includes an assessment of your medical, biometrics, as well as security and criminality background questions. If your application contains all the documents required for the stage 2 assessment, it will be assessed at the same time as stage 1. Note that we will not finalize any applications for approval for students destined to DLIs not on the approved list. The next question is, I have submitted all the required documentation for the two-stage approval. Will I receive just stage 1 or stage 2 approval? We still want to provide assurance to students who have already started studying and passed stage 1, so they will receive an AIP letter which permits online study. There is no stage 2 approval letter. If your DLI is on the approved list and you pass admissibility requirements, you will have passed stage 2 but will not receive any correspondence until we are ready to issue you a visa. At this point, we will send you a passport request letter. This should indicate to you that your application has been approved and is ready for visa issuance. The next question is, will IRCC issue any co-op work permits to students upon receiving approval of a study permit in principle or a stage 1 approval? The answer is, a stage 1 eligibility approval is not a guarantee that a study permit application will be approved. As a result, a co-op work permit cannot be issued before a final decision is made on a study permit application. However, this does not prevent you from beginning your co-op program while abroad. The work permit is only required for work to be done in Canada and not outside Canada. The next question is, what if my schooling starts prior to me receiving my stage 1 approval? You may start school online prior to obtaining your AIP. If you receive AIP after you started school, all the time will still count towards your Pgwp, provided that you submitted your study permit application before you began your online studies. Will I receive a refund of my tuition fees if my application is refused when I am studying online in India with a DLI in Canada? DLIs are responsible for setting their refund policies. IRCC cannot speak to this issue, but students are encouraged to ensure they are familiar with the various DLI policies relevant to their situation. When should I expect a decision on my application? There have been many service disruptions due to the COVID-19 pandemic, so our processing times are no longer accurate. IRCC is working hard towards normal service delivery standards. Applications meriting a refusal are being finalized at this time. Please check your online account or email in case you may have received a refusal letter. For applications to receive visa approval, only those destined to an approved DLI will be approved and issued visas. For all other cases, they will not be approved until either the DLI is placed on the approved provinces and territories list or the travel restrictions are amended or lifted. When should I submit my passport for visa issuance? The visa application centers in India remain closed. In the interim, a VAC two-way courier service have been launched. We are requesting passports in stages in order to receive the passports in an orderly manner. Orderly submission of passport will expedite processing of visa requests. Applicants are advised not to submit their passport unless they receive a two-way courier instruction. IRCC will be prioritizing student applications from approved DLIs where students can travel to Canada. Will my DLI have to provide me any supporting documents even if they are on the list of provinces and territories approved institutes with a COVID-19 readiness plan? The answer to this is yes. Your DLIs are supposed to provide guidance regarding the requirements to travel and quarantine in Canada, including what to do should someone encounter or be affected with COVID-19. The next question is, should my institute provide an updated letter of acceptance stating that they are on the government's list of approved institutes? The answer to this is no. This is not a requirement since the list has been published and will be updated regularly. In case your DLI is not on the list, you may want to contact them to find out at what stage they are regarding the approval. You only need to provide an updated letter of acceptance if you are deferring your studies and or switching DLIs. The next question is, if I am eligible to travel to Canada as per the amended travel restrictions, but I have still not submitted my biometrics due to VAC closures, is there any provision for me to travel without submitting my biometrics here in India and provide them once I land in Canada? The answer to this is no. All students must submit their biometrics in order to qualify for a visa. There is no exception. The next question is, my DLI is not currently on the approved list. Are there any chances of more DLIs being added? The answer to this is yes, and of course yes. The approved list of DLIs will be reviewed regularly and is updated every 2 weeks. In order to keep yourself updated of the most recent list, please follow our IRCC website and, as mentioned earlier, also follow us on social media at Facebook and Twitter @Canada in India. The next question is, my DLI is on the approved list, but my classes are still going to be online. In this case, can I travel to Canada? The answer is yes. As per the new travel amendments, irrespective of the medium of classes, whether they are physical or online, students may travel to Canada as long as they have an approved study permit and their DLI is on the provincial or territorial government's approved list. Will I be able to work in Canada once in the country even if my classes are online? The answer is yes. Once you land in Canada, you are eligible to work for up to 20 hours a week. You may also work outside of Canada if you choose to continue your studies online abroad. In this circumstance, IRCC cannot enforce the amount of hours you work, although we do recommend you focus on your studies as a priority. The next set of questions are with regard to language tests. So the first question is, may I submit a language proficiency test result that I completed online? If my school has accepted my result for my admission, is this sufficient? The answer to this is no. IRCC does not accept results from online language tests. There are no changes to the language proficiency assessment score requirement. The recommended tests are still IELTS for English and TEF or TCF for French. We also accept TOEFL and PTE academic. Test scores from Duolingo or any other online language test will not be accepted for any immigration application purposes, including for study permits. The next question is, what if my IELTS score is about to expire or has expired already? Given the limited availability of open test centers at this time, we will accept the IELTS test results as long as they were valid on the day you submitted your application. The next question is, does IRCC accept PTE language test scores as proof of language ability for a study permit application? The answer is yes. We accept PTE academic language test scores. You must submit your scores to IRCC using the PTE portal. Do not include your username and password in your study permit application. The next question is, my application is still pending. What happens if I defer my studies to a later semester during this time? If you choose to defer your studies, ensure you submit a new letter of acceptance using the web form as soon as possible, as we may update your file. The next question is, I received approval of my study permit but deferred my studies. How do I extend my visa? The answer to this is, you will need to apply for a new study permit with updated information. Extensions of study permits are only granted to students already in Canada. The next question is with regard to Pgwp. When determining if 50% or more of a program has been completed in Canada for Pgwp eligibility, how is the time calculated? 50% of a total program of study is calculated based on the number of courses completed in Canada. In a situation where part of a semester is completed in Canada and the other part online overseas, IRCC will consider that the semester was completed in Canada. Applicants may have to submit additional documents from the DLI. The next question is also with regard to Pgwp. I have already completed 50% of my program online prior to the fall semester. Will I be eligible to receive a Pgwp? You may complete 100% of your program online if your program is between 8 and 12 months in length, if you started your studies between May and September 2020, and if you finish your program by April 30th, 2021. You may finish up to 50% of your program online until April 30th, 2021 if you complete the other 50% of your program in Canada. And you may also complete 50% of your studies online until April 30th, 2021 if you will graduate from two different eligible study programs within 2 years of each other. If one of the programs started between May and September 2020, if each program is at least 8 months long, and if you complete at least 50% of the combined length of the programs in Canada. The next question is, do we have to wait for an approval in principle for courses to count towards Pgwp? The time spent studying online abroad will count towards the student's Pgwp after they submit a study permit application and before they begin their online classes, if their program of study started in 2020 or January 2021. Therefore, the length of the Pgwp will be considered from the date the student's official courses began, so long as the study permit application was submitted before the courses officially commenced. What if I switch from full-time to part-time studies? Will this affect the duration of my Pgwp? Students may put their studies on hold or become part-time students due to course cancellations as a result of public health measures at DLIs and COVID-19. For the winter, spring, and summer 2020 semesters, when a student's status changed from full-time to part-time due to changes in course delivery at a DLI, their eligibility for a post-graduation work permit will not be impacted. Starting in fall 2020, students who do not maintain a full-time status may not be eligible for the Pgwp. The next set of questions is with regard to processing times and, with regard to accompanying dependents. So the question is, I submitted an application for my dependent along with my study permit application. Will they be processed at the same time? The answer is yes. Applications for spouse and children of prospective students will be processed at the same time. You must provide financial documentation to show how you will be able to support your dependents without working in Canada. With the new travel amendments in place, what will be the status of the spousal applications which were in process and whose spouses are now eligible to travel to Canada? IRCC is processing those applications and all applicants will receive decisions on their applications. However, because of service disruptions and limited staff, there is a backlog which IRCC is working through, so applicants are requested to kindly be patient. The next question is, VAC biometric appointments are not available even after weeks of waiting. How do we know when the next VAC appointments will be available? The answer is, appointments are being released each week. Biometric appointments are free, and the only way to request and confirm an appointment is through the VAC contact center. You must have a unique biometric instruction letter issued directly by IRCC in order to request an appointment. Do not use a local agent unless they are recognized by IRCC as an authorized agent. Otherwise, you may be at risk of fraud. To find out if your representative is authorized, you can actually click on Find an IRCC Authorized Representative on our website. It is important that you provide IRCC with your email contact information so that we can share important information and updates directly with you. To update your contact information, you need to click on the IRCC Secure account and go to your MyCIC account. If you are a student or a family class applicant, once the Visa Application Center Contact Center receives your web form requesting a biometric appointment, they will schedule you into the next available slot and you will receive an email notification. The next question is, can I go ahead and submit my biometrics in another country? Now, this seems to be a very common question that we have been receiving across all channels. The answer is yes. You may choose to travel to another country and submit your biometrics in the visa application center there. Although travel is not recommended during a global pandemic and many countries have quarantine restrictions. As well, you may encounter challenges if trying to courier your passport across country borders, so it is recommended that you enroll your biometrics and submit your passport from within the same country where you are based. You will need to consult the VFS website for the country in which you are intending to enroll your biometrics and or submit your passport. And finally, a question which has been coming up really often now. Can I travel to Canada if my medicals have expired but my visa is still valid? Your visa remains valid even if your medical exam has expired and if you have not yet entered Canada. However, you must undergo a new medical if you lived in one or more of the countries or territories, including India, Nepal, and Bhutan, for at least 6 months within the past year. When making an appointment with a panel physician for a new medical exam, please request an upfront medical exam. Ensure you bring the documents you receive confirming you have completed this exam while traveling to Canada. This document is titled e-medical and has the following information: a UMI barcode, your photo, your personal details, and the date of your visit. You do not need to send this document to IRCC as the panel physician who conducted your medical exam will send us the results electronically. Please bring it with you when traveling, as the Canadian Border Security Agency officer may request to see this document at the port of entry when you enter Canada. That brings us to the end of the frequently asked questions part of the webinar. And with that, we come to the end of the webinar for today. As mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, we will be continuing to host these webinars to provide you with more updated information. And please also continue to follow us on social media. You can see our social media coordinates on your screen right now. I would like to tell you that this is the last webinar that we are hosting for the year 2020. During this time, if there are any changes in any travel restrictions or VAC operations, the information will be updated on our social media channels. We will continue to host more webinars in the new year. So please continue sending us your questions because, like I said, based on your questions, we update our frequently asked questions and we also update our social media messages. I hope the information provided in the webinar today was helpful for you and we were able to address most of the queries that we received during the course of the webinar. Thank you for joining us. Have a good day, all of you. Stay safe, take care, and wish you all a very happy new year. Thank you.